The late afternoon sun stretched golden fingers across the walking paths of Griffith Park as Taewon Park strolled beside his fiancée, Min Choi. Her manicured hand rested delicately in the crook of his elbow, the weight of it feeling like an anchor dragging him toward a future he'd never chosen. The engagement ring on her finger sparkled with cold brilliance, a 4-carat statement piece that screamed everything his family valued: status, strategic alliances, tradition. Everything except the one thing that actually mattered. Minasio's voice filtered through his thoughts like background noise, sweet and melodious. The wedding planner needs a final head count by Friday. My mother is insisting we invite the entire family, even though we barely know them. Taewon offered a non-committal sound of acknowledgement, his sharp eyes automatically scanning their surroundings with the practiced awareness of someone who'd survived too many assassination attempts to ever truly relax. Around them, families laughed and played, children shrieked with delight on the playground, couples walked hand in hand without armed bodyguards trailing 50 feet behind. Normal people living normal lives, a luxury he'd never experienced. Then the world stopped spinning. His chest constricted so violently he thought he might be having a heart attack. There, maybe 30 yards ahead, was a woman pushing a triple stroller along the paved path. Even from this distance, he knew her. Would have known her in a crowd of thousands, in the darkest night, in his final moments before death. Jade Morrison. Her rich brown skin seemed to glow in the sunlight, her natural hair twisted up in a careless bun that somehow looked more beautiful than any styled perfection. She wore simple jeans and a t-shirt with a food truck logo across the front, the fabric clinging to curves he remembered exploring with worshipful attention 4 years ago. But it was the children that made reality tilt sideways beneath his feet. 3 toddlers, perhaps 3 years old, their mixed features unmistakable. They had Korean eyes set in faces that bore Jade's elegant bone structure, her full lips, her high cheekbones. The little boy looked up at a passing bird and Taewon's breath simply stopped. Those were Park family eyes looking back at him, the exact shade of dark brown that stared at him from the mirror every morning. Jade's gaze found his across the distance. The blood drained from her face so quickly he thought she might faint. For one suspended moment, they simply stared at each other across 4 years of silence, pain, and words that could never be unsaid. Then she grabbed the stroller handle and ran. Taewon stood frozen as she disappeared around a curve in the path, his mind struggling to process what he'd just seen. 3 children. 3 children who looked exactly like any offspring of his and Jade's would look. The mathematics was simple and absolutely devastating. Taewon. Minasio's voice seemed to come from underwater, distant and distorted. You look like you've just seen a ghost. He had. The ghost of the only woman he'd ever actually loved, pushing a stroller containing children he'd never known existed. I need to leave, he said, already pulling his phone from his pocket. Leave? But we haven't finished discussing the seating arrangements. Jihoon will drive you home. His fingers moved rapidly across the screen, texting his right-hand man and head of security. Something urgent has come up. Minasio's perfectly glossed lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. More urgent than planning our wedding? Yes, he thought. Infinitely more urgent than a marriage that's nothing but a corporate merger with wedding vows. I apologize. I'll make it up to you, he said, the lie bitter on his tongue. 25 minutes later, Jihoon Kang materialized at the park entrance, his expression as unreadable as always. The man had been Taewon's shadow for 9 years, loyal beyond question and lethal when circumstances required it. Boss? Find Jade Morrison. Last known address, current employment, everything about her life for the past 4 years. And Jihoon, do it quietly. Jihoon's eyebrows rose fractionally, the most emotion he ever displayed. The chef from before? Yes. Taewon's jaw clenched hard enough to ache. And Jihoon, she has 3 children. I need to know everything about them too. Within 90 minutes, Jihoon had answers. They sat in Taewon's Mercedes outside a food truck called Jade's Fusion Kitchen in a Koreatown strip mall parking lot. The irony cut deep. She was still cooking the Korean soul food fusion dishes that had first brought them together. She owns the truck, Ji-hoon reported, reading from his tablet. Launched it 2.5 years ago. Lives in a one-bedroom apartment in Mid-Wilshire with the children, Marcus, Aria, and Isaiah Morrison. No father listed on any of the birth certificates. Taewon's hands curled into fists against his thighs. Their ages? 3 years, 3 months. The timeline aligned perfectly. Jade would have discovered her pregnancy shortly after he deliberately destroyed their relationship with carefully chosen words designed to cut deep enough that she'd never return. Words that had kept her alive, but cost him everything that mattered. Financial situation? Ji-hoon's expression darkened slightly. Struggling. She's 4 months behind on rent. The truck needs significant repairs. And there's an open case file with Child Protective Services. Someone filed a complaint about the children's living conditions. White-hot fury flooded through Taewon's veins. Who filed the complaint? Anonymous tip, most likely a neighbor. A social worker is scheduled to visit tomorrow afternoon. Taewon stared at the food truck where Jade worked alone, her movements efficient and graceful as she prepared orders through the service window. Even from this distance, he could see the exhaustion in the set of her shoulders, the way she paused to press her hand against her lower back. She was struggling, barely surviving, and it was entirely his fault. Boss? Ji-hoon's voice remained carefully neutral. Your orders. Taewon was quiet for a long moment, watching the woman who'd owned his heart since the moment she'd looked up from plating his bulgogi tacos and asked if he wanted extra gochujang with a smile that could have powered the entire city. I'm going to fix this, he said finally. And Miss Choi? The wedding. Taewon thought of Min Seo, sweet and beautiful and completely wrong for him in every way that mattered. Thought of his family's expectations, the alliance the marriage would cement, the power it would consolidate. Then he thought of 3 children carrying his blood, growing up without knowing their father because he'd been too much of a coward to fight for the woman he loved. The wedding can wait. The food truck was closing when Taewon approached. Jade was cleaning the grill, her back to the service window, humming something under her breath. The sound struck him like a physical blow. She used to hum while cooking for him in his penthouse kitchen, lost in her own world of flavors and creativity. We need to talk. She spun around, a metal spatula clutched in her hand like a weapon. Up close, he could see how 4 years had changed her. She was thinner, fine lines around her eyes speaking of sleepless nights and constant worry. But she was still the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. No, we don't. Her voice was ice cold, but he caught the slight tremor underneath. You made yourself crystal clear 4 years ago. Jade, please. It's Miss Morrison to you. She turned back to the grill, scrubbing with unnecessary force. And if you're here for food, we're closed. I saw them today. In the park. Her hands went completely still. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus, Aria, and Isaiah. Each name felt like a knife twisting in his chest. My children. The spatula clattered to the floor. Jade's shoulders shook, and for a terrifying moment he thought she might collapse. Then she straightened, turning to face him with eyes blazing with 4 years of suppressed fury. Your children. Her laugh was bitter and sharp. You don't get to call them that. You don't get to show up here after what you did and suddenly claim them. I know you hate me. Hate you. She stepped closer, and he caught her scent, vanilla and spice, and something uniquely Jade that made his chest physically ache. Hate doesn't even begin to cover what I feel for you, Taewon Park. You destroyed me. You looked me in the eye and told me I was nothing. A temporary distraction, a mistake you regretted making. Each word was a lash across his soul. He'd said those things to save her life, to make his family's enemies believe she meant nothing so they wouldn't use her to get to him. But she didn't know that. Couldn't know that. If I could take it back. But you can't. Tears glittered in her eyes, but her voice remained steady and strong. So you don't get to waltz back into my life and pretend you suddenly care. My children don't need a father who's ashamed of their existence. I'm not ashamed. Then where have you been? The question exploded out of her. 3 years, Taewon. 3 years of sleepless nights and working double shifts and choosing between groceries and keeping the lights on. 3 years of Marcus asking why he doesn't have a daddy like the other kids at daycare. Where were you? The pain in her voice nearly brought him to his knees. I didn't know. If I had known. You would have what? Married me? Introduced your criminal family to your black girlfriend and mixed-race babies. She shook her head. We both know exactly how that would have gone. She was right, and they both knew it. For years ago, he'd been weaker, more concerned with family approval than fighting for what actually mattered. Things are different now. Are they? She crossed her arms, studying him with those sharp, intelligent eyes that had always seen too much. You're still wearing a $5,000 suit. Still have that look in your eyes like you own the world. Still engaged to that pretty little Korean girl who fits perfectly into your perfect little world. He'd forgotten how well she could read him. Min Seo is none of your business, just like my children are none of yours. She turned away, beginning to pack up her supplies. Go home to your fiancé, Taewon. Forget you saw us today. I can't do that. You did it for 4 years. Because I thought it was protecting you. The words tore out of him before he could stop them. She went completely still. What? He'd revealed too much, but there was no taking it back now. There were threats made against you. My family's enemies thought they could use you to hurt me. The only way to keep you safe was to make sure everyone believed you meant absolutely nothing to me. Slowly, she turned around. Her face was unreadable. So you decided to play God with my life. I was trying to save it. By breaking my heart? By making me believe I was worthless to you. Her voice cracked. I was pregnant, Taewon. I found out a week after you threw me away like garbage. I was carrying your children, and you just told me I meant nothing. The image of her alone and pregnant, believing he didn't love her, was pure torture. Jade, I'm sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back 4 years. Sorry doesn't erase the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I'd done wrong. Sorry doesn't, her voice broke completely. He stepped toward her, every instinct screaming to comfort her, but she held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I need you to leave. I can't. Not now that I know about them. You don't have any rights here. They're my children. Biologically, maybe. But you're a complete stranger to them, and after what you put me through, you're going to stay that way. She was wrong about that. Now that he knew they existed, nothing in this world would keep him away from his children. But pushing her right now would only make everything worse. The social services visit tomorrow, he said quietly. I know about it. Fear flashed across her face before she could hide it. How do you never mind? Of course you know. You probably have half the city in your pocket. Let me help. I don't need your help. Your truck is breaking down. You're 4 months behind on rent. Someone reported you to child services, and you're about to lose everything. His voice gentled. Let me help. And what would you want in return? Time with my children. She was quiet for a long moment, conflict warring across her features. Finally, she spoke. I need to think about it. Jade. I said I need to think about it. She grabbed her purse and keys. I have to get home. The babysitter charges extra after 9:30. She was almost to her car when he called after her. I never stopped looking for you. She paused but didn't turn around. You should have looked harder. Then she was gone, leaving him standing alone in the empty parking lot with the weight of 4 years of mistakes crushing down on him. The next morning, Taewon sat in his home office reviewing financial reports when Ji-hoon knocked on the door. The social worker just arrived at Miss Morrison's apartment, he reported. Taewon's pen snapped in his grip. And? It's not going well. The building manager is there too. He's serving her with an eviction notice. He was on his feet before Ji-hoon finished speaking. Get the car. They arrived at Jade's building to find her standing in the narrow hallway outside her apartment, holding a crying toddler while two others clung to her legs. A stern-looking woman in her 50s was taking notes while the building manager gestured angrily at a stack of papers. Miss Morrison, I understand you're facing challenges, the woman was saying, but these children need stability. A safe, permanent living situation. This is safe, Jade insisted, but her voice was strained with stress. It's just temporary financial difficulties. I can fix this. With what money? The building manager demanded. You're 4 months behind, and now this. He waved the eviction notice. I've got other tenants complaining about noise, about kids running around at all hours. They're 3 years old, Jade snapped. They're supposed to make noise. Taewon stepped into the hallway, and every head turned toward him. He cut an imposing figure in his tailored charcoal suit, radiating the kind of quiet authority that made people instinctively step aside. Is there a problem here? His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. The social worker straightened, clearly recognizing power when she saw it. And you are? Taewon Park. Miss Morrison's friend. The word felt strange on his tongue. I understand there's been some confusion about her housing situation. Jade stared at him, the toddler in her arms, Isaiah, he realized, going quiet as he studied Taewon with curious dark eyes that were unmistakably Park family eyes. No confusion, the building manager said, though he seemed less aggressive now. She owes money. She's getting evicted. Simple as that. Taewon pulled out his phone and made a call. Ji-hoon, transfer 60,000 to, he looked at the building manager. What's your name? Chin. David Chin. Transfer 60,000 to David Chen's account immediately. He hung up and looked at Chin. That should cover Miss Morrison's back rent and 6 months in advance. I trust that resolves the eviction issue. Chen's phone buzzed. He looked at it, his eyes widening comically. Yes, sir. Absolutely. The social worker was taking furious notes. Mr. Park, what exactly is your relationship to Miss Morrison and these children? Before he could answer, Jade stepped forward. He's the children's father. The words hit him like a physical blow. She'd acknowledged it publicly, in front of the social worker who could determine their children's fate. The social worker looked between them, clearly recalibrating. I see. And where have you been for the past 3 years, Mr. Park? Unaware of their existence, he said simply. But now that I know, I intend to be very involved in their lives. Daddy? The little girl, Arya, peeked out from behind Jade's legs, looking up at him with wide, curious eyes. His heart stopped. She'd called him Daddy. This beautiful little person who shared his blood had just called him Daddy, and he felt something crack open in his chest that he hadn't even known was closed. He crouched down to her level, his expensive suit forgotten. Hello, Arya. She smiled, and it was like looking directly at sunshine. You're really tall. You're really beautiful, he said softly. Mama says I look like her grandmama. Arya stepped closer, studying his face with the fearless curiosity of a 3-year-old. Do I look like you too? Yes, he whispered. You do. The social worker cleared her throat. While this is touching, I still have concerns about stability. Miss Morrison, you're clearly struggling financially. And Mr. Park, your sudden appearance raises questions about commitment and consistency. Taewon stood, his mind racing. There was one solution, but it would require Jade to trust him. After what he'd done to her, that was asking the impossible. Miss Morrison and the children will be moving in with me, he said. Today. Jade's head snapped up. Excuse me. My estate has a guest house. Fully furnished, completely separate from the main house. They'll have privacy and security while we work things out. Absolutely not, Jade said immediately. The social worker looked intrigued. That could provide the stability we're looking for. Mr. Park, I assume you can provide financial records showing your ability to support the children. Of course. And you, Miss Morrison? How do you feel about this arrangement? Jade looked trapped, her eyes darting between the social worker and the children clinging to her. Taewon could see her weighing her options. Pride versus practicality, independence versus her children's welfare. It would be temporary, she said finally. Just until I get back on my feet. Excellent. The social worker made more notes. I'll schedule a follow-up visit in 2 weeks to see how everyone is settling in. Mr. Park, I'll need those financial records by tomorrow. You'll have them. After the social worker and building manager left, Jade leaned against her apartment door, looking utterly exhausted. The children had wandered back inside, and he could hear them playing. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Yes, I did. I can't pay you back. I don't want you to pay me back. I want you to let me take care of my children. She looked up at him, and for a moment her guard was down. He saw the scared, overwhelmed single mother beneath the fierce exterior. This doesn't change anything between us, she said. I know. I'm still angry with you. I know that too. And I don't trust you. You shouldn't. Not yet. He stepped closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. But I'm going to earn it back, Jade. However long it takes. She stared at him for a long moment, then pushed off the door. I need to pack. Jihoon will send movers for the furniture. We don't have much furniture. The casual way she said it, like poverty was just a fact of life, made his chest tight. Then we'll get new furniture. Whatever the children need. They don't need much. She paused, vulnerability flickering across her face. Just stability. They'll have it. I promise. She nodded once, then disappeared into the apartment. Through the open door, he could hear her explaining to the children that they were going on an adventure, that they'd have a new place to stay for a while. Will the tall man be there? Arya asked. Yes, baby. He'll be there. Good, came Marcus's voice. I like him. He has nice eyes like mine. Taewon closed his eyes, overwhelmed by emotions he didn't have names for. 3 hours ago, he'd been a man with no family except the criminal organization he'd inherited. Now he had 3 children who liked his eyes and called him daddy, and a woman who hated him but was willing to let him try to make amends. It was more than he deserved, but he'd take it. And somehow, he'd find a way to actually deserve it. The guest house on Taewon's Malibu estate was larger than Jade's entire apartment had been. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Pacific Ocean, and the kitchen was a chef's dream with professional-grade appliances and marble countertops that probably cost more than she made in a year. Mama, look. Arya pressed her face against the window. The water goes on forever. It's the ocean, baby, Jade said, setting down the last of their meager belongings. Everything they owned fit in 5 suitcases and 3 garbage bags. The contrast between their possessions and the luxury surrounding them was painfully stark. Marcus was exploring the living room, running his hands along the leather furniture with the careful reverence of a child who'd been taught not to touch nice things. Isaiah sat cross-legged on the floor, arranging his collection of toy cars in precise rows, a ritual that helped him feel secure in new places. The bedrooms are upstairs, Taewon said from the doorway. He'd changed out of his suit into dark jeans and a black t-shirt that showed off the lean muscle beneath. It was unfair how good he looked, how her body still responded to him after everything. We can all share one room, Jade said quickly. We don't need much space. There are 3 bedrooms upstairs. The children should have their own space. They're used to sharing, and I need to be close to them. He studied her for a moment, and she had the uncomfortable feeling he could see right through her. The truth was she couldn't afford to get comfortable here. This was temporary, just until she could figure out her next move. The last thing she needed was for the children to get attached to a lifestyle they couldn't keep. The master bedroom connects to 2 smaller rooms, he said finally. You could keep the doors open. That was actually perfect. Okay, thank you. An awkward silence fell between them, broken only by the children's chatter as they explored their new surroundings. "I should let you get settled," Taewon said. "Wait." The word escaped before she could stop it. He paused, eyebrows raised. Thank you. For today. I know I don't deserve your help after." "You don't deserve it?" He stepped closer, his dark eyes intense. "Jade, you've been raising my children alone for 3 years. You've sacrificed everything for them. If anyone doesn't deserve help, it's me." The sincerity in his voice caught her completely off guard. This wasn't the cold, controlled man who'd shattered her heart 4 years ago. There was something different about him, something raw and real that made her chest ache. "Mama?" Arya came running over, tugging on Jade's jeans. "Can we go swimming? There's a big pool outside." "Maybe tomorrow, baby. We need to unpack first." "I can show them the pool," Taewon offered. "If that's okay with you." Jade hesitated. Part of her wanted to keep the children close, to maintain the protective barrier she'd built around their little family. But another part, the part that remembered how gentle he'd been with Arya in the hallway, wanted to see him with them, wanted to see if he could be the father they deserved. "Okay," she said. "But just for a few minutes." Watching Taewon with the children was like seeing a completely different person emerge. He crouched down to their level, listened seriously to their chatter, and answered their endless questions with patience she'd never seen him display before. At the pool, he rolled up his jeans and sat on the edge, letting them splash his feet while he told them about the fish that lived in the ocean. Isaiah, usually shy around strangers, gradually moved closer until he was sitting right next to Taewon, his small hand resting on the man's arm. "He doesn't usually warm up to people that fast," Jade said, settling beside them. "He's special," Taewon said, watching Isaiah arrange pool toys in a specific pattern. "They all are." "Isaiah has autism," she said quietly. "High functioning, but he needs routine and predictability. Changes are hard for him." Taewon nodded, filing the information away. "What helps him?" "Structure, clear expectations. And he loves numbers. He can count to 100 in 3 languages." "Which languages?" "English, Spanish, and," she paused, realizing, "Korean." "I taught him Korean." Taewon went very still. "You taught him Korean?" "I taught all of them basic Korean. I thought they should know something about that part of their heritage." Even if she trailed off, not wanting to finish the sentence. Even if their father would never be part of their lives. "Show me," he said softly. Jade called to Isaiah in Korean, asking him to count to 10. The little boy looked up, his serious dark eyes focusing on her, then began counting in perfect Korean pronunciation. When he finished, he looked at Taewon expectantly. "Very good," Taewon said in Korean, and Isaiah beamed. "You understand me?" Isaiah said in Korean, his words careful but clear. "Yes, I understand you," Taewon replied in the same language. "Would you like to learn more Korean words?" Isaiah nodded enthusiastically, and for the next 20 minutes, Taewon patiently taught him new vocabulary while Marcus and Arya played in the shallow end of the pool. Jade watched, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. This was what she'd dreamed of back when she was pregnant and terrified and still believing in fairy tales. She'd imagined Taewon teaching their children about their Korean heritage, being the kind of father who was present and engaged and loving. But dreams were dangerous things. She'd learned that the hard way. "Mama, I'm hungry," Marcus announced, climbing out of the pool. "I'll make dinner," she said, grateful for the distraction. "The kitchen is fully stocked," Taewon said. "Jihoon made sure of that." "You don't have to. I want to cook for them." He met her eyes, and she saw something vulnerable there. "For you. Please, let me do this." How could she say no to that? "Okay." In the kitchen, she fell into the familiar rhythm of cooking, the children playing nearby while Taewon watched from the breakfast bar. She made kimchi fried rice with bulgogi, comfort food that bridged both their cultures. "You still cook Korean food," he observed. "The children like it." And it reminds me, she stopped, not wanting to admit that it reminded her of him, of the nights they'd cooked together in his penthouse, her teaching him about soul food while he showed her the dishes his grandmother had made. Reminds you of what? Nothing. Just better times. He was quiet for a moment. I remember the first meal you cooked for me. Bulgogi tacos with kimchi slaw. You said it was fusion blasphemy. I was wrong. It was brilliant. His voice was soft. You were brilliant. She kept her eyes on the pan, not trusting herself to look at him. That was a long time ago. Not that long. Long enough. When dinner was ready, they sat around the small dining table like a real family. The children chatted about their day, asking Taewon questions about the house and the ocean, and whether there were sharks in the water. Are you going to live here too? Arya asked, twirling noodles around her chopsticks with the concentration of a surgeon. Taewon glanced at Jade. I live in the big house. You're staying in the guest house. Why don't you live with us? Because he struggled for an answer that would make sense to a 3-year-old. Because your mama and I are still figuring things out. Oh. Arya considered this. When you figure it out, will you live with us then? Jade's heart clenched. Isla, it's not that simple. Why not? Because your father broke my heart into so many pieces I'm still finding fragments. Because I can't trust him not to do it again. Because I'm terrified of wanting something I can't have. Because grown-up relationships are complicated, she said instead. After dinner, Taewon helped with bath time and bedtime stories. His presence was both natural and surreal. He read to them in Korean, his deep voice soothing as he translated the stories into English when they asked questions. When the children were finally asleep, Jade found him standing on the deck, looking out at the ocean. The moon was full, casting silver light across the water. They're incredible, he said without turning around. They are. I missed so much. The pain in his voice was raw and real. Despite everything, she felt a stab of sympathy. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have found you sooner, made sure you were okay. You made your choice 4 years ago. I made the wrong choice. He turned to face her, and in the moonlight, she could see the regret etched in his features. I was a coward, Jade. I let my family's expectations matter more than fighting for you. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Regret doesn't change anything. No, but maybe this can. He stepped closer, and she caught his scent, expensive cologne and something uniquely him that made her pulse quicken. Let me prove I've changed. Let me prove I can be the man you and the children deserve. And what about Mafia? His jaw tightened. What about her? You're engaged, Taewon. You're supposed to marry her in 3 months? That was arranged by our families. It's not. Not what? Not real. Not important. She shook her head. That poor girl thinks she's marrying the man she loves. She doesn't love me. She loves the idea of me. The status, the security. Just like I was supposed to love the idea of her. But I don't. No? His eyes found hers, dark and intense. I don't. I never have. There's only been one woman I've ever loved, and she's standing right in front of me. The words hit her like a physical blow. She dreamed of hearing him say he loved her, back when she was young and naive and believed love could conquer anything. Don't, she whispered. Don't what? Don't say things like that. Don't make this about love when it's really about guilt and obligation. You think that's what this is? I think you're a man who's just discovered he has children, and you're confusing responsibility with emotion. He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You're wrong. Am I? I've thought about you every day for 4 years. I've compared every woman to you and found them lacking. I've woken up reaching for you and gone to sleep wishing I could take back every cruel word I said. His voice was rough with emotion. That's not guilt, Jade. That's love. Her breath caught. She wanted to believe him. Wanted it so badly it physically hurt. But she'd believed him before, and it had nearly destroyed her. I can't do this, she said, backing away. I can't let you hurt me again. I won't. You can't promise that. You couldn't promise it 4 years ago, and you can't promise it now. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm evening air. Your family still won't accept me. Your world still won't accept us. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. I have children now. I have something worth fighting for. You had something worth fighting for before. You just chose not to fight. The words hung between them like a blade. She saw him flinch, saw the truth of it hit home. You're right, he said quietly. I was a coward before. But I'm not anymore. Prove it. How? She met his eyes, her heart hammering against her ribs. End your engagement. Tell your family about us, about the children. Choose us over them, publicly and permanently. He was quiet for a long moment, and she could see the war playing out across his features. Family loyalty versus love, duty versus desire. The same battle he'd fought 4 years ago. The same battle he'd lost. I need time, he said finally. Time for what? To figure out how to have both? To find a way to keep me as your dirty little secret while you marry someone else. She shook her head. I won't be hidden away again, Taewon. And I won't let my children be hidden either. That's not what I want. Then what do you want? You. Them. A life together. Then take it. Stop asking permission from people who don't care about your happiness and take what you want. She turned to go inside, but his voice stopped her. And if choosing you means losing everything else? My family, my position, my power. She looked back at him, this man she'd loved and lost and was terrified of loving again. Then you'll know what I felt like 4 years ago when I lost you. The next morning, Jade woke to the sound of laughter coming from downstairs. She checked the time, 7 o'clock, and panic shot through her. The children were early risers, but she'd set multiple alarms to make sure she was up first. How had she slept through them? She threw on a robe and hurried downstairs to find Taewon in the kitchen with all 3 children, making pancakes. He was still in his pajamas, expensive silk pants and a white t-shirt, and there was flour in his hair. Mama. Arya ran over, syrup sticky on her fingers. Taewon made elephant pancakes. I see that. Jade looked at the elaborate breakfast spread, then at Taewon. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to. He flipped a pancake with practiced ease. I used to cook breakfast for my younger cousins when I was a teenager. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed it. Marcus was carefully cutting his pancakes into precise squares, while Isaiah arranged his bacon in a pattern only he understood. They looked comfortable, settled, like they belonged here. That was dangerous. I need to get to the food truck, she said. Figure out what needs to be repaired. Ji-hoon already handled it. New engine, new refrigeration system, fresh paint job. It'll be ready by this afternoon. She stared at him. You can't just fix everything with money. I'm not trying to fix everything. I'm trying to help. By taking over my life? The children looked between them, sensing tension. Taewon's expression softened. Can we discuss this later? She wanted to argue, but not in front of the children. Fine. But we are going to discuss it. After breakfast, Taewon announced he had to go to work but would be back for dinner. The children hugged him goodbye like it was the most natural thing in the world, and Jade's chest tightened watching them. They were getting attached. She could see it happening, the way Isaiah sought Taewon's approval, how Marcus asked when he was coming back, the way Arya had started calling him Daddy Taewon like it was his official title. What happened when this arrangement ended? When Taewon decided his family's approval mattered more than their little makeshift family. The children would be devastated. She spent the day trying to establish some normalcy, taking them to the beach and letting them play in the sand while she worried. Her phone buzzed with a text from Kennedy Williams, her best friend and the only person who knew the whole truth about Taewon. Asterisk girl, where are you? Your building manager said you moved out. Asterisk. Jade sighed and called her. Please tell me you didn't do something crazy, Kennedy said by way of greeting. Define crazy. Oh no. What did you do? I'm staying at Taewon's house. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. Did you just say you're staying at the house of the man who destroyed your life? It's complicated. It's stupid, Jade. Honey, I love you, but have you lost your damn mind? He's their father, Ken. He's also the man who told you that you meant nothing to him. The man who made you cry for 6 months straight. The man who... I know what he did. Do you? Kennedy's voice was sharp with concern. Because it sounds like you're falling for him again. Jade watched Marcus help Isaiah build a sandcastle, their dark heads bent together in concentration. He's good with them. Patient and kind. You should see him with Isaiah. He spent an hour teaching him Korean numbers yesterday. And what about with you? Jade was quiet for a moment. That's complicated. Complicated how? He says he loves me. Says he's always loved me. And you believe him? I don't know. Maybe. Sometimes when he looks at me, it's like she struggled for the words. Like the past 4 years never happened. Like we're still those people who couldn't keep their hands off each other. But you're not those people anymore. You're a mother now. And he's still a criminal with a family who hates you. I know. Do you? Because it sounds like you're falling for him again. Was she? Jade thought about the way her pulse quickened when he walked into a room. The way her body still responded to his presence like a tuning fork struck against crystal. I'm trying not to. Try harder. Those babies need stability, not another heartbreak. After she hung up, Jade sat on the beach watching her children play, Kennedy's words echoing in her head. Her friend was right. She was falling for him again, despite every logical reason not to. But logic had never been her strong suit where Taewon was concerned. That evening, he returned home with bags from an expensive toy store and enough takeout to feed an army. You don't have to buy them things, Jade said, watching the children tear into packages with gleeful abandon. I want to. I have 3 years of birthdays and Christmases to make up for. That's not how it works. Then how does it work? Tell me, because I'm making this up as I go along. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. You just be present and consistent. You show up every day, even when it's hard. I'm trying to do that. For how long? Until the novelty wears off? Until your family puts enough pressure on you to walk away. He was quiet for a moment, watching Isaiah methodically arrange his new toy cars by color and size. My grandmother wants to meet them. Jade's blood ran cold. What? I told her about the children. She wants to meet her great-grandchildren. You told her. Panic clawed at her throat. Taewon, what were you thinking? I was thinking she deserves to know they exist. And what did she say about me? His silence was answer enough. She doesn't want me there, Jade said. It wasn't a question. She needs time to adjust to the idea. The idea of what? That her precious grandson knocked up a black woman. Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't reduce yourself to that. Why not? That's how she sees me, isn't it? That's how your whole family sees me. My grandmother is old-fashioned, but she's not. Not what? Not racist? Not classist? Not everything that made you choose your family over me 4 years ago. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating from every line of his body. It's complicated. No, it's not. It's actually very simple. Either you choose us or you choose them. You can't have both. Why not? Because they'll never accept us. Because every family dinner will be a battle. Every holiday will be a war zone. Every milestone in our children's lives will be tainted by their disapproval. Her voice rose, and she forced herself to lower it, aware of the children playing nearby. I won't live like that again. I won't subject my children to that. Our children. My children. You haven't earned the right to call them ours. The words hit him like a physical blow. She saw him flinch, saw the pain flash across his features. What do I have to do? He asked quietly. Tell me what I have to do to earn that right. Before she could answer, her phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach drop. Mrs. Sandra Phillips. Miss Morrison, I'm calling about tomorrow's follow-up visit. I'm afraid I need to move it up. I'll be there in an hour. An hour? But I've received some concerning information that I need to address immediately. Please make sure both you and Mr. Park are present. The line went dead. Jade stared at the phone, dread pooling in her stomach. What is it? Taewon asked. Mrs. Phillips is coming now. She says she received concerning information. His expression darkened. What kind of information? I don't know, but it can't be good. They spent the next hour in tense preparation, making sure the house was perfect, the children clean and happy. When Mrs. Phillips arrived, she wasn't alone. She had a police officer with her. Miss Morrison. Mr. Park. Her expression was stern. We need to talk. They gathered in the living room while the children played upstairs, their laughter a stark contrast to the tension below. I received a call today, Mrs. Phillips began, from someone claiming to have information about Mr. Park's business activities. They suggested that these children might be in danger due to his criminal associations. Jade's heart stopped. That's ridiculous. He would never. Miss Morrison, I need you to understand the seriousness of this situation. If there's any truth to these allegations, I'll have no choice but to remove the children from this environment. There's no truth to them, Taewon said, his voice deadly calm. Someone is trying to use the children to get to me. And who might that someone be? Taewon was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with resignation. My family. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Jade felt the blood drain from her face. Your family reported you? Mrs. Phillips asked. Not directly. But they have ways of applying pressure when they disapprove of someone's choices. And they disapprove of Miss Morrison and the children. They disapprove of anything that threatens their control over me. Mrs. Phillips made notes, her expression grave. Mr. Park, I need you to understand that I can't allow children to remain in a situation where they might be used as leverage in criminal disputes. They won't be. I'll make sure of that. How? Taewon looked at Jade, and she saw something shift in his expression. A decision being made, a line being crossed. By walking away from the family business. Permanently. The officer leaned forward. You're willing to give up your position in the organization for them? Yes. Mrs. Phillips studied him for a long moment. That's a significant decision, Mr. Park. Are you certain you can follow through? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Jade stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. He was choosing them. Actually choosing them over everything else. I'll need documentation, Mrs. Phillips said. Proof that you've severed ties with any criminal organization. And I'll need it within 48 hours, or I'll have to remove the children. After Mrs. Phillips and the officer left, Jade and Taewon sat in stunned silence. You can't do this, she said finally. I can. I will. Taewon, that's your entire life. Your family, your power, everything you've worked for. None of it matters without you and the children. But if you walk away, you'll have nothing. He turned to look at her, his dark eyes intense. I'll have everything that matters. The sincerity in his voice, the absolute certainty, took her breath away. This was what she'd asked for him to choose them publicly and permanently. But now that he was doing it, she realized the magnitude of what she'd demanded. What if you regret it? I won't. How can you be sure? Because I've spent 4 years regretting the choice I made before. I won't make the same mistake twice. He reached for her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she let him take it. His fingers were warm and familiar, and she felt some of the walls around her heart begin to crack. I love you, Jade, he said quietly. I've loved you since the moment you smiled at me over a plate of bulgogi tacos and asked if I wanted extra gochujang. I'll love you until the day I die, and probably long after that. Tears pricked her eyes. Taewon, I know you don't trust me yet. I know I have to prove myself. But I'm going to do whatever it takes to earn your love back. You never lost it, she whispered. His breath caught. What? You never lost my love. I tried to stop loving you, tried to hate you, but I couldn't. Even when I thought you didn't care about me, Even when I was sure you'd never want our children, I couldn't stop loving you." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Then give us another chance. Let me prove I can be the man you deserve." She looked into his eyes, seeing the boy she'd fallen in love with beneath the powerful man he'd become, seeing hope and fear and desperate love all tangled together. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'll give us another chance." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. It tasted like coming home. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of lawyers, documents, and tense phone calls. Taewon moved with the focused determination of a man who'd finally found his purpose, systematically dismantling the life he'd built to create space for the life he wanted. Jade watched him work, still hardly believing he was actually doing it. He met with federal prosecutors, offering information in exchange for immunity. He transferred his legitimate business holdings into a trust for the children. He formally resigned from every position he held in the Park family organization. And when his grandfather arrived at the estate with 2 cars full of enforcers, Taewon met them at the gate alone. Jade watched from the guest house window, her heart in her throat as the 2 men faced off. She couldn't hear what was being said, but she could see the tension in every line of Taewon's body, the cold fury in his grandfather's posture. The confrontation lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, the old man and his men left without looking back, and Taewon stood alone at the gate for a long time before walking back to the house. "What did he say?" Jade asked when he came inside. "That I'm dead to them. That if I ever try to contact the family again, there will be consequences. Are you okay?" He was quiet for a moment, staring out at the ocean. "I thought it would hurt more," he said finally. "Losing them. But all I feel is relief." She moved closer, studying his profile. Relief? I'd been living their life for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to make my own choices. He turned to look at her, and she saw a peace in his eyes she'd never seen before. "For the first time in my life, I'm free." "Free to do what?" "Free to love you the way you deserve to be loved. Free to be the father our children need. Free to build something real instead of just inheriting something hollow." That evening, Mrs. Phillips returned to review the documentation she'd requested. She went through everything carefully, the resignation letters, the immunity agreements, the trust documents that secured the children's financial future. "This is quite comprehensive, Mr. Park," she said finally. "You've essentially severed all ties with your former life." "Yes." "And you're comfortable with that decision?" "More than comfortable. It's the best decision I've ever made." Mrs. Phillips closed her file and smiled, the first genuine smile Jade had seen from her. "In that case, I see no reason to continue monitoring this situation. You've created a stable, loving environment for these children. I'll be closing the case." After she left, Jade found Taewon on the deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. The children were inside building a fort out of couch cushions and arguing over architectural decisions with the seriousness of actual architects. "No regrets?" she asked, settling beside him. "None." He pulled her closer, and she let herself melt into his warmth. "Well, maybe one." "What's that?" "I regret that it took me so long to find the courage to do this. I regret the time we lost, the years I wasn't here to see them grow. You're here now. That's what matters. Is it enough? Am I enough?" She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "You gave up everything for us. Your family, your power, your entire identity. How could that not be enough?" "Because I should have done it 4 years ago. I should have fought for you then. Maybe you weren't ready then. Maybe we both needed to grow up first." She touched his face gently. "And now, I think we might actually have a chance." He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. "I want to marry you." Her breath caught. "Taewon. Not right away. I know we need time to rebuild trust, to figure out how to be a family. But someday, when you're ready, I want to marry you. I want to make this official." "What about Minacio?" "I ended the engagement yesterday." She was relieved, actually. Turns out she's been in love with someone else for months, but didn't know how to tell her family. Really? Really? She thanked me for giving her the courage to follow her heart. Jade laughed, the sound bright and free. So we're both rebels now. The best kind. They were interrupted by Arya calling from inside. Mama. Daddy Taewon. Come see our fort. Daddy Taewon. The title still made his chest tight with emotion every time he heard it. We should go in, Jade said. In a minute. He caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. I love you, Jade Morrison. I love our children. I love the life we're building together. I love you too, she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Inside, they found the children had constructed an elaborate blanket fort that took up most of the living room. Marcus was the self-appointed architect, directing his siblings with the authority of someone who'd clearly given this serious thought. It's a castle, Arya announced, crawling out of the entrance. And we're the royal family. What makes us royal? Taewon asked, crouching down to her level. Because we live in a palace, she said, gesturing around the guest house. And because you're a prince and Mama's a princess. What does that make you three? The most important people in the whole kingdom, Marcus said with the confidence of a 3-year-old who'd never doubted his own significance. Isaiah emerged from the fort, his dark hair sticking up at odd angles. Can we have dinner in the castle? Absolutely, Jade said. What do royal families eat for dinner? Pancakes. All 3 children shouted in unison. Pancakes it is, Taewon said, already heading for the kitchen. As they prepared dinner together, Jade making pancakes while Taewon cut fruit and the children set the table with plastic plates and cups, she felt something settle in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Contentment. The bone-deep satisfaction of being exactly where she belonged. Mama, Arya said, tugging on her pajama pants. Are you and Daddy Taewon going to get married? The question caught her off guard. Why do you ask that, baby? Because married people live together and take care of each other and love each other, and you do all those things. Out of the mouths of babes. Jade glanced at Taewon, who was watching the conversation with barely concealed hope. Maybe someday, she said carefully. Good, Arya said with satisfaction. Because I want him to be my real daddy forever. He is your real daddy, Jade said softly. He always has been. Even when he wasn't here, even then. Later, after the children were asleep and they'd cleaned up the remains of their blanket fort dinner, Jade and Taewon sat on the couch together, her head on his shoulder, his arms around her. This feels like a dream, she murmured. A good dream or a bad dream? The best dream. The kind you never want to wake up from. Then don't wake up. Stay here with me. For how long? Forever, if you'll have me. She tilted her head to look at him. What about your businesses? Your money? How are we going to live? I've got enough legitimate investments to keep us comfortable. And I'm thinking about opening a restaurant. A restaurant. Korean soul food fusion. Like the food you used to make for me. We could run it together, you as head chef, me handling the business side. The idea sent excitement shooting through her. You'd want to do that? I'd want to do anything that means spending every day with you. Even if it means starting over from scratch. Especially if it means starting over from scratch with you, with our children, building something that's entirely ours. She kissed him then, pouring 4 years of longing and love and hope into the connection between them. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. I want that, she whispered against his lips. I want all of it. The restaurant, the life, the forever. All of it. Even marriage? Eventually. Especially marriage. Eventually. He smiled, the expression transforming his entire face. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life making you happy. You already make me happy. You and those 3 little people upstairs who think we're royalty. We are royalty. We're the royal family of our own little kingdom. And what kind of kingdom is it? The kind where love matters more than power. Where family comes first. Where second chances are possible and dreams come true. I like the sound of that kingdom. Good, he said, pulling her closer. Because you're going to be its queen. Outside, the ocean waves crashed against the shore in an endless rhythm, and inside their little castle, a family that had been broken was finally whole again. 1 year later, Jade's fusion kitchen was packed for the lunch rush, every table full and a line out the door. Jane moved through the kitchen like a dancer, orchestrating the controlled chaos of a successful restaurant with the same grace she brought to everything else. Order up, she called, sliding plates across the pass. Table 6, bulgogi tacos with extra kimchi slaw. Taewon appeared at her elbow, stealing a quick kiss before grabbing the plates. Table 6 is asking if the chef will come out to meet them. Apparently they're food bloggers. Tell them I'm too busy to be charming. That's your job. I prefer being charming to you. Later, she said, but she was smiling. We've got 3 more hours of service. The restaurant had been open for 6 months, and they were already being featured in food magazines and travel guides. The fusion concept that had once been just for them had found an audience hungry for something new and authentic. Mama. Aria's voice carried from the small office behind the kitchen where the children did homework after school. Isaiah won't share the crayons. Use your words, baby, Jade called back. Tell him how you feel. I feel like he's being a crayon hog. Taewon laughed, disappearing into the office to mediate the crayon crisis. Through the pass-through window, Jade could see him crouching down between Isaiah and Aria, listening seriously to both sides of the argument before producing a second box of crayons from his desk drawer. Crisis averted, he returned to the kitchen. Marcus wants to know if he can help serve tables. He's 4. He's very responsible for 4. The answer is still no. What if I supervise? The answer is still no. But I love that you asked. The afternoon flew by in a blur of orders and laughter and the comfortable rhythm they'd developed. When the last customer left and they'd finished cleaning, Jade found Taewon on the restaurant's small patio, watching the children play in the courtyard they'd created behind the building. Good day, she said, settling beside him. The best. Did you see the review that came in this morning? The one that called us a revelation in fusion cuisine. That's the one. He pulled her closer. We're booked solid for the next 2 months. I can't believe this is our life now. Better than you imagined? So much better. She watched Isaiah carefully arranging fallen leaves in a pattern while his siblings built a fort out of outdoor cushions. They're happy. They are. And so are you. How can you tell? You hum when you cook now. You didn't used to do that. She hadn't realized, but he was right. Somewhere along the way, joy had crept back into her daily routine. What about you? Any regrets about giving up the life of crime for the life of a restaurateur? Only one. Her heart skipped. What's that? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I regret waiting so long to ask you this question. Jade's breath caught as he slid off the bench and dropped to one knee. The children, sensing something important was happening, stopped playing and gathered around. Jade Morrison, he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning ring, not the massive diamond she might have expected, but a perfect sapphire surrounded by smaller diamonds that caught the afternoon light like stars. You've given me everything I never knew I wanted. A family, a purpose, a reason to be better than I ever thought I could be. Will you marry me? Say yes, Mama. Aria bounced on her toes. Say yes so we can have a wedding. Can I wear a tux? Marcus asked seriously. Isaiah just smiled, his quiet approval somehow meaning as much as his siblings' enthusiasm. Jade looked at the man kneeling in front of her, this powerful, dangerous man who'd given up everything to build sandcastles with their children and learn to make pancakes in the shape of dinosaurs. This man who'd chosen love over loyalty, family over power, hope over fear. Yes, she said, and the word came out like a song. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like everything else about their improbable love story. Group hug. Arya declared, and suddenly they were all tangled together in a pile of arms and laughter and tears of joy. When's the wedding? Marcus wanted to know. Soon, Taewon said, looking at Jade. Very soon. Can we have cake? Arya asked. The biggest cake you've ever seen, Jade promised. Can we invite everyone from the restaurant? Isaiah asked. Everyone, Taewon agreed. As the sun set over their little courtyard, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Jade looked around at her family, her beautiful, chaotic, perfect family, and felt her heart overflow with gratitude. For years ago, she'd thought her story with Taewon was over. She'd been wrong. It was just beginning, and this time they were writing it together. If you enjoyed this powerful story of second chances and redemption, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another emotional journey. Drop a comment below and let me know what you thought of Taewon and Jade's story. Should I continue with more romance stories like this? Your support means everything. And remember, it's never too late for a second chance at love. Until next time, keep believing in happy endings.